Tonight, remembered for humility and healing, the world mourns the passing of Pope Francis. Chaos. One person is dead after an apartment fire in Fort St. John. Being held. Crews tackle a wildfire south of Chile. Well, good evening, happy Easter, and thank you for joining us. And we begin tonight with the tolling of the bell in St. Peter's Square this morning, marking the death of Pope Francis. The leader of the Catholic Church has died at the age of 88 after suffering a stroke. Francis was known to many as the people's pope for his compassion for the poor and the marginalized. Heather Butts has more on the pontiff's life and his legacy.
The solemn toll of bells echoed through St. Peter's Square Monday morning, marking the death of Pope Francis, the end of a monumental era for the Catholic Church, a world now grieving a loss as people showed their profound respect and deep admiration for a pontiff who charmed the world with his humble style and devotion to the less fortunate.
He was an example of loving everyone, no matter who you were.
The announcement from Vatican officials.
Il Vescovo di Roma Francesco è tornato alla casa del Padre.
The Bishop of Rome, Francis, returned to the house of the Father. The statement just hours after the head of the Catholic Church surprised thousands with an Easter blessing circling the square in his open-topped Pope-mobile. This after 38 days in hospital with bilateral pneumonia.
Impressive that he made it to Easter. I think that's almost like a miracle for Italy, but it's sad.
From the moment he stepped forward as Pope, Francis made it known his would be a different papacy.
Buonasera.
A simple good evening in casual Italian signaled change. A pope of firsts, the first Jesuit from Argentina, the first from the Americas. Born Jorge Mario Bergoglio, the son of Italian immigrants. He modeled a life of simplicity. He refused to live in the grand papal apartment and wore silver, not gold. Elected at the age of 76, still he didn't cling to the old ways. The pontiff allowed divorced Catholics to take part in the communion service. Francis insisted everyone deserved respect and love, allowing Catholic priests to bless same-sex couples, but keeping it distinct from the sacrament of marriage.
Ma chi sono io per giudicarla?
Contraception, he maintained, shouldn't be used to prevent pregnancy, but was acceptable to prevent disease. In other areas, he was unmoved. While he praised women and promoted a record number to leadership positions, he stopped short of allowing them to be priests. On abortion, he compared it to hiring a hitman.
Per risolvere un problema.
The leader of more than 1 billion Catholics improved relations with Jews, Muslims, and Orthodox leaders. He brokered talks between Cuba and the United States. He was in part defined by his humility, urging a more compassionate church. Francis comforted the disabled and championed the plight of the poor. He condemned world conflicts, urging peace in Ukraine. Denouncing President Trump's deportation policies, he pushed for better treatment of refugees and warned of suffering because of climate change. Under his watch, the church handled clergy sex abuse scandals. Decades of cover-ups and systemic failures came to light during his papacy. In a letter to all Catholics, he wrote, "We showed no care for the little ones. We abandoned them." Ordering a first-ever Roman Catholic summit on pedophilia and introducing new reforms. To generations of Indigenous Canadians, he apologized.
Nel chiedervi scusa.
For the abuses they suffered in Canada's Catholic-run residential schools. Repeating it again during an historic week-long visit to Canada.
Pido perdón.
He maintained a tireless schedule even as his health started to drastically decline a couple years ago, battling influenza, falls, knee pain, and most recently double pneumonia. Even at the end of his life, Pope Francis sent a lasting reminder to, quote, revive our trust in others, including those who are different than ourselves. Pope Francis was 88. Heather Butts, CTV News.
And the death of Pope Francis now triggers centuries-old rites and traditions. A period of mourning typically lasts 9 days. According to church custom, the funeral should be held within 4 to 6 days, with a mass taking place in St. Peter's Square. The death sets into motion the process of electing a new pope. Cardinals from around the world will head to the Vatican. The conclave will be held 15 to 20 days from today. Well, back here at home, it was a chaotic scene in Fort St. John on Easter Friday, and a warning, the information in this next story is disturbing. One person is dead, 2 others injured after a shooting that saw a man drive his car into a burning apartment building. It happened just before 1:30 Friday afternoon in the 9800 block of 103rd Avenue. Police say a man in a silver car allegedly shot at a black pickup with 2 occupants inside. The truck fled the scene and ended up at the hospital. Police believe the man in the car set fire to the apartment. He then drove into the burning building, killing himself. Emergency crews arrived on scene, extinguishing the blaze, but not before the building suffered extensive damage. Well, a witness tells CJDC-TV News that a man was running through the emergency room at the Fort St. John Hospital. He was yelling, quote, "My girlfriend has been shot in the face," unquote. Soon after, police arrived at the ER with guns drawn. The hospital was briefly placed on lockdown. The injuries to the 2 individuals are not considered to be life-threatening. According to a GoFundMe account, the woman was airlifted to hospital in Vancouver for emergency surgery. The Serious Crime Unit is continuing its investigation. Anyone with dash cam or security footage of the area is being asked to contact the Fort St. John RCMP. And Mounties in Fort St. John asking for the public's help in identifying 2 youth. Police say back on April the 3rd, the 2 boys allegedly removed some glass from the Norpiece Cultural Center in the 10,000 block of 100th Avenue. Investigators say the glass was then smashed in the parking lot of the building. The person on the left was wearing a dark blue hoodie with a white graphic on his chest. He had a ball cap with longer hair in the back. Mounties say he was also wearing blue jeans and black runners with white soles. Anyone with any information on this case is also being asked to contact the RCMP detachment in Fort St. John. Well, a wildfire broke out Friday south of Chetwynd. It was burning out of control 6 kilometers south of town near the Don Phillips Way. It grew quickly to just over 46 hectares in size. Winds were gusting to 60 kilometers per hour on Friday afternoon, making it more difficult for firefighters to get a hold of the blaze. 2 helicopters were on scene. They were helping 21 firefighters as well as the Chetwynd Fire Department. The fire is now listed as being under control, the BC Wildfire Service saying it is believed to be human-caused. Another fire started Friday in a remote area northwest of Fort St. John. It grew to 10 hectares in size before being held just east of Grand Laurier Provincial Park. And the warm weather and sustained drought could make for a challenging wildfire season, but a BC company believes it could be part of the solution. And as Isabella Zavarizzi reports, it's created a technology to help on the front lines of the fight.
Thick smoke paired with dwindling daylight. Fighting wildfires at night can be fraught. When crews are resting, the burn continues.
And these fires are able to creep along and essentially break down a lot of the work that was done during the day.
Suppressing the flames to give emergency responders a head start in the morning is why one BC company developed an autonomous drone. It automatically picks up water, dousing hotspots, even reaching remote areas.
They have a 2-hour endurance at 400 kilogram payload with an airspeed slightly slower than a traditional helicopter.
It's personal for Fire Swarm Solutions CEO Alex Deslauriers. In 2023, during one of BC's worst wildfire seasons, a home that had been in his family for 4 generations in Gun Lake was destroyed.
At that point, as an aerospace engineer, I said, wait a minute, I know the people and the professionals that can really bring change to the problem that we have today.
We've always wanted to have this technology to help us get to fires more quickly and more safely.
Fire Swarm partnered with another BC company that will help provide training to operate the drones.
I think that it'll take very little time for people to appreciate just how much safer they'll be, either at the edges of communities or around critical infrastructure, when equipment like this is pre-positioned and there are a lot of trained operators available to respond quickly.
That rapid response is part of why it was created. The city of Kelowna will be testing it this summer, with permanent plans for the drones to be deployed next year. It's an additional tool as BC and the rest of the country braces for another wildfire season. Isabella Zavarisi, CTV News.
Well, to the campaign trail now, where voters head to the polls in just 1 week, as party leaders scattered across the country making their final pitches to Canadians. The focus today, healthcare, housing, and a Conservative promise to unveil their full party platform. CTV's Colton Prale reports.
Pierre Poilievre enters the final week of the campaign the same way it started, with a focus on housing.
When you add it all up, it gets you 2.3 million homes for Canadians in 5 years.
The Conservative leader unveiled his plan to boost home construction by cutting development charges, selling public land, and incentivizing municipalities, but was questioned on what his promises would cost. His opponents say big cuts are coming, but voters won't have an answer until the Conservatives unveil their platform tomorrow, something every other party has already done.
You should be afraid and very afraid because their numbers are always wrong.
Both the Liberals and NDP focused on health care. Mark Carney promising $4 billion towards hospitals, care centers, and long-term care homes. The Liberals plan to cover their spending through $28 billion of undefined savings, something Mark Carney was asked again to explain.
I fully expect that we are going to exceed those cost reductions, but we have a prudent approach to it.
Meanwhile, Jagmeet Singh re-announcing his plans to expand pharmacare.
New Democrats in the first year will fight to expand pharmacare to include essential medications.
With just a week until Election Day, and after millions voted in advance polls, both the NDP and Bloc are hoping this final push can provide a boost the debates didn't seem to. New polling shows small gains for the NDP, while the Bloc stayed steady, as did the race between the frontrunners.
In the last two elections, the last 10 days of the campaign were very good for us.
Despite that confidence, the country is currently shaping up for an election that hasn't been seen in generations. One where 80% of Canadians are voting for one of two parties. Colton Prale, CTV News, Ottawa.
And as Colton just mentioned, today is the last day for advance voting in the Peace region and across the country. So far, a record number of Canadians have voted early. Polls close tonight at 9 o'clock. North American stock market took another hit today as Donald Trump ramped up his attacks on Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. Trump, taking to social media today, he called Powell, quote, a major loser, and suggested the American economy could slow down unless interest rates are lowered immediately. And Trump claimed there's virtually no inflation in the U.S. and that the costs for energy are declining. The U.S. president and his team are looking at whether they can legally fire the central bank leader before his term expires next year. But Powell has stated the president cannot remove him under U.S. law. The U.S. Defense Secretary lashed out at the media today. Pete Hegseth did not like being asked about reports he shared sensitive information for a second time in a Signal chat.
This is where we're fighting hoaxsters. This group, this group right here, full of hoaxsters that peddle anonymous sources from leakers with axes to grind.
Reports say that Hegseth shared details on the March attack on Yemen's Houthis in another message group. This second chat included his wife, his brother, and his personal lawyer. Back in March, Hegseth shared highly sensitive security details on an attack with a journalist by mistake. Despite sharing the information on an unsecure platform for a second time, Donald Trump said today he stands by Hegseth. Today's comments were made while his family was at the White House Easter egg roll. Just after a brief Easter weekend truce ended, Russia struck multiple locations in Ukraine with drone attacks. People in a number of cities, including the capital Kyiv, were urged to take shelter. Ukraine says 96 drones and 3 missiles were launched. On Saturday, the Russian president announced the 30-hour truce. It has since expired, but both countries are accusing each other of violating the temporary ceasefire. All right, please do stay tuned. I'll be right back with weather.